false checker flag. That's a fine. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, back for another episode of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me, as always, is co-host Steve Mez. If it's your first time listening to this podcast, it's brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself has been offering news, notes, and analysis to fans on social media since 2014. So go ahead and pull those belts tight and hang on as we throw the green flag on our recap of Ryan Blaney's run in the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400 this past weekend at Pocono Raceway. Steve, welcome back. I know we want to jump into our recap of Pocono, but it was a big week in Blaney fandom. And because of that big week, we thought it best to bring in a special guest again to help us recap, actually, the SRX series trip to Sharon Speedway. And that special guest, of course, is your wife, Kate Mez. Kate, welcome back again.
Thanks for having me.
So big week, like I said, for Blaney fans, something that we on the podcast have been talking about for months since the announcement. And finally, the day was here. And luckily, the two of you were our Team Blaney's, what I call them, Team Blaney's, Team Mez roaming reporters out there at Sharon Speedway, where you guys, had some access to see all the sights and sounds and everything up close as the night kind of unfolded. I know you guys were pumped to attend the event in the first place. Was it everything that you expected? Was there anything unexpected? And what were your favorite parts of the night? All those questions, answer them.
Yeah, I know. For me personally, I want to thank Hawk and Mr. Hawk and SRX for giving us a chance to experience it from a different angle. That's something our access that we got to have, and that hopefully Team Blaney people got to see on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I know as the night went on, you posted more and more pictures as we were able to send them. Those things were really great for the fans that weren't there to be able to see, the pictures that we were able to send, the videos that we were able to send. And I know right now, literally Ryan retweeted my photo dump that I did the next day, and I'm getting notifications like crazy on Facebook right now, which is fine. I mean, that's what they're for. I'm hoping that people get to see some things they didn't get to see on TV. The fans that were there got to see some great things. Who's the one picture that you actually reposted that had the two of them standing on the track together, Dave and Ryan?
We did. I think his name was Jeff Dean or something like that. Yeah. But it's with somebody that follows Team Blaney that was on site there, and they actually kind of captured a photo there and made sure I posted that one, gave him some credit. But I think that was the coolest thing, that we had you guys on site, and there's actually people commenting as it went, thanking us for kind of giving that a little bit, an inside look or, behind the scenes look of the night as it unfolded, because obviously this was a big deal for Dave and Ryan and Sharon Speedway. But SRX is also there covering their entire series and all of their drivers. So, they're posting stuff about Dave and Ryan, but they're also posting, Tony Stewart and Tony Kanaan, and they're focusing on the event as a whole, what you guys were able to provide. And then through kind of our teamwork throughout the night, trying to get all that content out there, was just, like I said, that behind the scenes kind of look for fans. And I think a lot of the people across all of our social media platforms really, really appreciated the work that you guys were doing. So it was awesome.
So we started off, we got there a little, the gates open at 2, but I think we got there, about 4, a little bit after 4?
It was right at 4.
Okay. And at that point, Ryan and Chase and Joey were not there yet. So we did head down to the pit area right off the bat. And then Kate started snapping photos like crazy.
Well, I mean, we were right up against the cars. We could walk in and out of the cars and see everything. So yeah.
Well, we had access to press box type of suite. So that was the only mistake I think we made, is we went from that area to the suite to watch the action on the track, like when they went practice and so forth. And we were at that point, we missed guys jumping into the cars. That was one thing we probably could have got to see that we didn't. But we had pretty good, like I said, pretty good location there. We went up there, then came back down and caught the arrival.
Yep. Yeah.
Which that was probably my favorite part of the night, because you sent a great photo of Ryan arriving at the track. He has his backpack on, he's got these boots on, he's walking in. And I told Steve, I was going to have fun with the night as I was posting stuff on our accounts. And I posted out there that Ryan just parachuted into the track. And man, I cannot tell you the amount of people that actually thought he physically parachuted into the track and thought that was amazing. And they're asking for video.
Yeah,
and that pretty
Mr.
much
Penske would be okay with that.
Yeah, that made my night, quite honestly. And it went on for a long time. I posted a follow-up post that said, actually, it was a joke. He did look like somebody that could have parachuted in. But that's pretty much what they did. They were doing practice and qualifying at Pocono, just a couple hours before they hopped on that Penske plane and flew over to the Youngstown airport. So, which is only 20-minute drive, I think, from the track. So, and from what I understand, Joey was the chauffeur, and they did have a little bit of a police escort to get them over to the track in time, because those two guys didn't get to participate. Ryan and Chase didn't get to participate in the practice early on in the night.
No, they gave them a special practice with just the two of them on track. Or they posted the top 2 times.
Yeah, that was kind of wild. That they must have worked the track in for them or something, because they were, when they come out and did their little practice session, it was the quickest 2 times of the night.
Now, what did you think? What did you think of the fans that were in attendance and kind of the access that they got to the drivers and to the sites at the track?
I mean, you're among friends. I mean, the biggest cheer of the night was Ryan.
Yep.
Then Dave or Chase, somewhere in there. I mean, they both got big applauses, but I mean, it felt like how it should be all the time.
Yeah, the pit area was interesting because of the way it was set up. We were on the inside of basically the rail, but you could get within 15, 20 feet of the cars. Mm-hmm. And if the drivers wanted to come over and do an autograph or two, they could have, and they may have. Like I said, we may have missed that part. I've seen pictures of guys who did do that. So, that was really kind of cool access wise. I wore a extremely bright yellow shirt with the podcast on there, and we were recognized right away.
Yeah.
The one guy from who was it from Michigan there?
Yeah.
I can't think of his name. Jacob from Michigan right away caught us. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. And then he was like, oh, I heard the podcast last week. He says, you were great. Not to me.
But he said he drove down from Michigan. It was his first dirt track race. So he was really excited about that.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. Yeah.
The line going to the SRX merchandise trailer was the longest line. It was longer than the food lines, And I do want to say something about Sharon Speedway itself. This is probably one of the larger crowds it's ever had.
Yep.
Okay. And where we were, we knew where there was a food stand down below us on the second level, down that other end, so on and so forth. From what I saw personally, even though the lines were long, they actually did a great job moving it, moving people, moving it. And the other thing was, like she said, so many of them amongst friends. So I'm standing there, and the next thing you know, the guy behind me, we just start talking about Ryan or Dave, so even though we may be in this line for, a couple minutes, that's moving right along because we're just, like I said, talking with other fans. And that part of it was extremely, extremely cool. Something you don't get when you go to a NASCAR race and it's, 50 or 70,000 people, and they're all different fans all over the place. And when you see one, you kind of point at each other, hey, but at Sharon, it was 95% of the people that were there for one reason, and that's to see Dave or Ryan run. So that was a really cool part of it.
Yeah. I'm really glad that I know there's a point where they kind of cut off ticket sales, and I saw some stories later on about the event that kind of said, you know, like Dave and Lisa and the team at the track actually made a conscious decision to cut, because they could have fit more people into the infield and some other standing room only spots, but they wanted to make it comfortable for the fans that were going to be there. And the crowd itself was already going to be huge in general. One, I am really glad that the crowd was huge, because SRX throughout the season, it's kind of depended track to track. There's been a few tracks that have basically sold out all their stands. There's been a couple of tracks where it wasn't as big of a crowd, and I think they'll make adjustments as they go into the next, you know, the third season of this, where they do go. But I knew, I had a feeling that the Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania fans, and then also, like you said, people driving in from Michigan, the photos that you were sending and we were posting, you could just see, you know, from the grandstands, you guys shot down from, I think Ryan practicing, and then just shots of the backs of people's t-shirts, and it was just tons of 12 t-shirts all the way throughout the crowd. You could just see the Blaney gear everywhere, and obviously those were the two hometown kind of heroes they were out there to see, but also just the caliber of drivers that were there was just insane, from NASCAR champions and Indy 500 winners and Daytona 500 champions. It was just, I mean, that's what SRX is kind of all about. So we've talked a little bit about the atmosphere in the facility and the track. Let's talk about the racing a little bit here, because that's what everybody was there to see. We were excited to see was this whole Battle of the Blaney's thing. Ryan and Dave, you know, they mentioned a couple times, like, oh yeah, we've raced together some, and Ryan and Dave, you know, on their videos, they were only talking about racing in some charity events. I'm like, man, are they forgetting that they raced that truck race, that truck race together? But I know they're really excited to try to race around each other. And they did get to do that a little bit later on. But the night started out with a heat race.
Yeah, the beginning of the heat race.
Yeah.
From what I can remember, I went back and started reading some different accounts, but everybody seems to blame it on Paul Tracy.
Yep, as usual.
Yeah, that was kind of the beginning of it.
Yeah, he started the wreck, and everybody else wrecked it, and it wrecked Ryan, and he got turned basically the other direction, and then it was a head-on collision with his car.
And man, it was not looking good. And the thing to mention, and they mentioned this, Alan Bestwick mentioned it on TV, but I guess Hawk mentioned it in the drivers' meeting. They had no backup cars. They had torn up so many cars over the season because of aggressive driving, and last week at I-55, that they didn't have enough. They had enough cars to go around, and that was about it. And they, you know, suggested, as they do, and even NASCAR does this from time to time, suggested that they kind of take it easy in the heat race, so everybody will have a good piece for the feature. And immediately, man, right off the bat, Ryan, wrong place, wrong time, just gets destroyed in the front end, the radiator, everything. And from what I understand, you know, Ryan was, you know, wasn't exactly happy. It's like, man, I just flew in here from Pocono. Everybody's here to see this in the stands, and I might not get to race. What were your feelings at that moment?
Yeah, it was pretty, we were pretty scared about that part of it.
You could feel it in the air, like everyone, you know, it was so hyped, the Battle of the Blaneys, and then all of a sudden it was like, uh-oh, like, is this not going to happen? And we were watching Twitter, we were checking to see if you knew anything from TV. I think we messed up there. We should have left the booth, and we should have gone down to watch them throw everything at that car, because I think they did. I think they did anything they could to get that thing to move.
Okay, so that happens, and it's basically an hour later when they run the feature.
Yep.
They changed all the oil cooler line fittings. The guy, I talked to a couple of the mechanics down there after the race. There was a ratchet strap holding the radiator in place.
Yeah, the bracket was broken.
Old school things that you would do to fix that thing, and they did all the old school things.
Yeah.
And got it done in a manner that car was still competitive.
Yeah, it was.
You know, he raced side by side or along with some people later in a feature that didn't look like there was anything wrong with the car. So, you know, kudos to the SRX repair guys, the crew, the mechanics. That was incredible, because, you know, we're in the booth with a couple guys who, you know, work in the automotive industry, and we were talking about how long it would take to fix that kind of stuff, and they were like, 2 hours, 3 hours, you know. That's a mechanic in a shop trying to make his rate, and, you know, and so forth. But those guys did a bang up job, and they looked really proud of it, actually, afterward when we were down there. You know, I started asking questions, and he's like, oh yeah. And they were pretty excited that they got that thing up and running again.
Well, can we back up a little bit? And while Ryan is down in the pits and everybody's, with bated breath waiting to find out, Heat 2.
Heat 2, yep.
Yeah.
Watching
Dave
go into those corners and giving Chase a little run for his money. That was probably like one of the highlights for me, was watching Dave kind of like school this kid for a little bit.
Yeah, he did. He run a nice high line, Chase up underneath at the bottom of the track. And for a great number of laps, it was just like that back and forth. And Dave gets to run off the high side and then just right down the straightaway and takes the lead again. And it must have been 10 plus laps like that. And that was just,
it felt longer.
Yeah.
But it was,
and it was,
really
that was
cool.
worth the price of admission right there.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. It was fun to watch Twitter react to that because, people don't get to see Dave too often. I know Twitter exploded last year when he won the World of Outlaw race at Sharon Speedway. But it was interesting watching the two styles. It's like Dave's running up there. He's like, I'm going to run this car. I know it's a stock car that's actually built for road racing on asphalt that they're using in this series. But he's like, I'm going to run it like a dirt car anyway, up at the top like I'm used to, even though I'm sure he knew it wasn't necessarily the fastest lane, but it's what he was most comfortable with. Where Chase is like, okay, I've run a little bit on dirt. I've never been in this car before. I'm going to run it low. I'm going to run it slow, but consistent and not try to, step the car out too much. And they were both making very similar lap times.
They were.
And eventually consistency won out. Chase ends up going on to win this heat race. There was a caution that flew before that, so they did have to re-rack a little bit there. But the consistency on the bottom kind of won out because it's dangerous to run that top groove. And, Dave jumped the cushion a little bit and got into the wall a couple of times. And he ended up, it seems like right at the end, and part of it was tires too. Running that high line sideways used up a lot more tires than Chase running the bottom. So that won out. Dave, he slid back to second, slid back a little bit more. And I think he ended up actually fifth by the end of that, at that heat race. So, but really, really fun to watch regardless. Honestly, I didn't really care. I mean, with the amount of there's 12 or so guys that were running in this race, I really wasn't worried about who was going to start where, because I knew there was going to be carnage and people spinning out and people hitting the wall and everything that happened in the feature. So that's how how Heat 2 ends. Some point during Heat 2 or just right after is when the news breaks on Twitter that Kenseth, which we didn't mention, Matt Kenseth was also in that wreck and his car was beat up pretty bad. He and Ryan were both going to make it for the feature. And Ryan's car rolls out on the track for the main event, and it kind of looks like an open wheel modified. And I was just glad it was rolling. And I was like, all right, we'll at least get to see what's happening. And, Dave didn't have the best average finish. So they were starting near each other toward the back of the field for the main event.
Yeah, but the fun part about that was as they started rolling, they raced side by side with each other for a while too. Yeah. So, ultimately you would have loved to have seen them both at the front together. But if you're watching them particularly, did run side by side and actually race each other for a while. So
yeah, they rubbed some fenders too.
Yeah, I was gonna say they did a little beating and banging there.
So that was really cool to see. There's we'll skip ahead. There's several incidents in this race, and actually the distance is shortened. It was supposed to go 70 laps. They weren't going to count cautions. I was telling Steve, when we talked about the race after, I'm like, man, I knew there was no way. There's no way they were going to make 70 laps just based on knowing how these cars were going to run on dirt, that it's always a little bit chaotic. So it gets cut short to what I think 50. Ryan and Dave, there's a point when Dave actually made his way from the back all the way up into the top 5 and was running around there. But I think he hit the wall at some point and fell back. And then a little bit further on in the race, he really hit the wall and pulled off the track. Ryan did the same. He made it up a couple of times. He got caught 3 wide and he kind of had to bail and he fell back again. But talk about I think it was the one restart toward the end of this race where Ryan makes a huge move on the outside, goes all the way up into the 4th position.
Yeah.
And the caution comes out.
Yeah. And then they take extra laps to figure out who's lined up where. And I couldn't figure it out. I thought for sure he was going to be in the top 4 or 5 for the restart. And
so did he. He raced around up there
the whole time. They have the top 5 up on the scoreboard, and he's listed as 5th, and they just keep shuffling him to the back, and we could not figure out what was going on.
Yeah, and I don't know.
An awesome move he made to get up there, and I was like, he's going to have a shot now, starting in second row. So Man, so that was unfortunate. I think Josh, what I really thought was funny was if you followed Josh Williams, Ryan Spotter on Twitter, I don't think he actually knew what happened. He posted because he's still back in Pocono because they didn't need spotters for SRX. They actually don't run spotters at all. So Josh didn't make the trip. I'm sure he would have if they needed him, but it was really just the timing as he posts this photo of ice cream. He's eating like this giant banana split or something at Pocono, right when Ryan crashes out of the heat race. And I'm like, man, I don't think he actually knew what happened. And then then I think he realizes it a little bit later on. Then he starts watching the race. And about that move of Ryan getting shuffled, he said he was bamboozled. He was bamboozled on the lineup. I thought that was pretty funny.
Which actually comes into play on Sunday too. They talk about that on the scanner on Sunday. A couple things that always seem to happen to him on cautions and lineups.
So Ryan ends up getting shuffled back there. He does move up a little bit by the end of this race. Like I mentioned, Dave does get into the wall. I think he causes a caution a little bit later on. I think pulls off the track. So Dave finishes around 12th. Ryan actually gets up to a decent position, about halfway, ends up in the 7th position by the time this thing is done. Posted it on our social media channels, the before and after pics of the car, from when it was nice, shiny and new, and then from when everything was cut off. And I can't remember if that was actually from the end of the race or if it was from right before the feature started, but really, really fun stuff. There's a nice battle between, Tony Stewart struggled most of that race and then slowly started picking up positions all the way to where he battled with Chase Elliott till the end. Chase wins the race because, Chase is the new Jimmy Johnson with that lucky horseshoe, I guess, across everything that he races right now. So Chase wins at Sharon Speedway. Ryan finishes 7th. Marco Andretti breaks his wrist in a crash, which the crash itself, wasn't. That's a whole nother deal. Because he's fighting for the championship with Ryan Newman, breaks his wrist, finishes out the race, and comes home with the SRX championship because this was the finale race for the series. And just amazing that they chose Sharon Speedway to host that championship race.
Yeah. I mean, Hawk talked on the podcast last week when we had him on about he's got 14 other tracks that want to race next year, 14 that he's, really excited about. I know that moving around every year is a good idea. It really is to kind of spread the wealth and get things to different places. But I really hope that, like, if they do that Sharon Speedway is in the rotation, maybe not next year, maybe the year after, or maybe they do every 3rd year or something like that. That'd be great. As long as this thing keeps thriving and getting bigger and better, getting some different names every year and so on and so forth. I could see Sharon Speedway hosting again at some point. And, Ryan and Dave running together is super. Dave could run against his brother too. That'd be great. Yeah. We saw Dale there down the pit area. Yeah. I'm sure he would do pretty well in one of these cars too, So I'm hopefully they'll come back to Sharon Speedway. I think Sharon Speedway did everybody proud. The fans definitely showed up to show that it was worth it. And it was so great to see him featured on TV. It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. The facility, I mean, with the drone shots that SRX does, the facility looked amazing on television. And I know that, they probably had everybody out. Maybe like Roger Penske does at IMS, had everybody out making sure everything was squared away, clean. I know Dave and Lisa in the media talked a lot about how they wanted to make sure it was a good fan experience. There's only so much in their hands that they could control. But, they try to, have it entertainment and merchandise. And like you were talking about the food lines moving, just to try to give everybody a good experience. And this is, one of the biggest crowds they've ever had. I know they've had some big crowds for World of Outlaw races in the past, and that's probably the closest that they would get to something like this. But the national attention that was on the track itself was what I was looking forward to probably the most. Whether they come back again, I don't know. It's going to be tough. Unless they expand the schedule, there's only 6 races in the SRX season. So it's tough to get everybody in there. If they don't come back to Sharon Speedway specifically, that's okay. It had its moment in the spotlight. I just wish, Dave or Ryan could get the call to, and it's up to them too if they want to do it, could get the call to participate. even at, some of the asphalt tracks. I'd like to see Ryan run some of those short tracks because he doesn't get to do that much. And I don't know if that's just, a contractual thing, or just, time thing. We don't really get to see Ryan race outside of the Cup Series. I mean, it was nice. We used to get to see him run a truck race here and there, or an Xfinity race here and there, and that doesn't really even happen anymore. So I feel like, and a lot of other drivers are kind of participating outside of just their Cup obligations. So if they don't come back to Sharon, that's okay. But if they could put Ryan in a seat at one of those other short tracks next year, I think that would be awesome. I'd
be okay with Dave running for the series championship.
Yep.
If they could talk him into doing it, for 5 or 6 weeks in a row, because he would contend, he definitely would know how to handle all the different surfaces, all the different places. So he'd have a little bit of an advantage when they do go to a dirt track, and definitely could see him running the fairgrounds and all those different places, no offense to Paul Tracy, but
years ago, I had plenty of folks that were posting on all of our stuff from the night saying, it's time for Paul Tracy to hang it up. And I know, it's SRX is kind of an entertainment series, and I think they play into that. They wanted somebody to be the villain. They want somebody to be the hero. But
he was one of the nicest guys we saw down there. He was talking to everybody and everything. He's not, I think you're right. I think
he's just playing his role, but I think they don't necessarily appreciate the equipment getting torn up though.
Yeah.
So
he's a little rough on the equipment, but so overall, the experience was super. We went down to the pits after the race. We tried to stay out of the way. We were there on a credential type of thing. We got a couple pictures, and actually the camera, your phone works pretty good in the dark. Got some nice pictures in the dark. It doesn't look like it's dark. Jeff Gluck was there. So people want to check out The Athletic. The story, I think, came out Tuesday, actually today when we're taping. Yep. So that's kind of cool. It's a story on Ryan and the Family Foundation. The shirts. Okay, so yes, they were sold out by the time we got there. The shirts were sold out. That the Sharon Speedway Battle of the Blaney shirts. Keep an eye out on the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation page, and also we will tweet it and retweet it and post it when it comes back out. But they put them online, sold them out online already.
Yep, they plan to restock again.
So they're going to restock again. I don't know how many they make at a time. I'm sure they got to get the presses all set up to do a bunch more. Keep an eye out for them. They're really cool. Go ahead and stand up for 1 sec. So those are going to be watching the podcast on and then can you do a spin or not? No. I know you got headphones
on. Yeah,
I got.
They got that Battle of the Blaney's on back.
There we go.
My favorite part, obviously the cars on the back are awesome, but they've gone through, and I don't know if they made up that Sharon logo or not, but they've at least made it look kind of an old timey, kind of speedway logo, fitting that like Flag and Anthem and Ryan Blaney vintage type theme. So I think that's a big selling point too, just in general. So yeah, watch for those shirts to come out. Wildly popular, and they support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation and their efforts to support the Alzheimer's Association as well. So that was also really cool to see. So so Kate, thank you for coming on to the podcast. For coming on today.
You guys forgot the other Blaney that had to do with the race. You can't give a shout out to the matriarch of the Blaney family.
Oh, that's right. During the pre-race.
Hello, Kate Blaney's the one that told them to start the engines.
That was awesome.
I thought that was great.
That was a total surprise to me when they put her up on the screen. That was really awesome to see.
We all started cheering.
Yeah. So
shout out to Kate Blaney.
Yep. And everything that they did, but if you guys don't have anything else, I know we have some other things to recap on, but like I was pretty much saying, thanks to Kate, because Kate Mez, that is, because one, you've hopped on, I'm the one that for some reason likes to travel and leave my obligations from the podcast, but I know I always leave it in good hands with the two of you, because you guys do a lot of work behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, when I'm not here. So thanks for coming on last week and recapping the New Hampshire race. And thanks for being one of the roaming reporters that we had last week during the SRX race at Sharon Speedway.
the most fun work I've ever had. So thank you. I appreciate it.
And look for more pictures and content as close as we can get to whatever this weekend at Indianapolis also, because Team Mez will be at the Indy race.
Yes, we will. Okay, guys, I'm going to go feed the dog. Bye.
All right, Steve, now we take the time to recap that SRX season finale championship race, Battle of the Blaneys at Sharon Speedway. Let's jump right back into our recap of the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400 at one of your favorite tracks, Pocono Raceway.
Pocono, it's the favorite. The Team Mez experience doesn't happen without Pocono. And the fine people of Pocono put on a big weekend race this weekend. I heard it was sellout or near sellout to sell the campgrounds again.
Campground suites were sold out. I think the grandstand looked like it was just about maybe on the edges. There's a couple of seats here and there. I know you're sad. Pocono, they tried the double header. It happened during the height of the pandemic, so no fans could go. You guys talked about that last week. They did the doubleheader last year. It was really successful. I know they at that point said they had the most campgrounds, the most campers and everything in a long time there. The crowd, I wouldn't say necessarily was a sellout, but it was huge. So, but they take that date away and they give the one date only for Pocono, and the crowd showed up. The campers showed up again. It's tough for me. I mean, I don't live up near there anymore, so it's like my heart's not tied to that track. I would hate it if one of my local tracks around me lost a date of the 2 dates, because I just want to go to as many races as I can get to. But you can't really argue with the results as far as the attendance and the quality of the experience for the fans.
Yeah, I mean, it works out for the best. It really does. It kind of puts more focus on one weekend and one event. So they did practice Saturday, Group A. He was in Group A, and NBC's coverage is not only, I think, better, but Kim Kuhn added to the broadcast. And I don't know if a lot of people know or remember, Kim used to do the podcast with Ryan and Chuck Bush, the Glass Case of Emotion. So she's got a little bit of an in there, and you'll hear more reporting on Ryan, maybe just based on the fact that she's able to go over and talk to him or talk to his people a lot easier than maybe some other drivers. So right away, after 3 laps, they came back in, and she reported that this was actually part of the game plan for the practice. They knew that if it was way off, they were going to come in and throw the kitchen sink at it and make some changes. And it was part of their plan for the day. So I made this note right off the bat that once they went back out, they made a jump of about 0.6 of a second. Okay. Now you say, okay, well, it didn't put them up the board very high. Well, no, it didn't, but it was on the same tires. They never swapped out tires. So they ran tires that were already had a couple laps on them, and that lap time jumped up 0.6 for them. It didn't go way up the board because a lot of other guys end up going out later on and running like a qualifying lap on a fresh set of tires. So it didn't look on the board like it was great, but on the other hand, it was actually a pretty good jump, and would shake out later on than it would be. Ends up being 28th quick in the combined practice times. But like I said, once again, I think that it was better than everybody thought it was because of that little factor there that they were on old tires and still made that kind of a jump.
Yeah, and I think people maybe were a little bit concerned. The speeds hasn't really been there the last couple of weeks. Last week at New Hampshire, obviously, with the finish that they had, I could see where, and I was too, I'm watching the beginning of this practice session, and comes out and he is like dead last, basically. And I was like, oh man, this is not a good omen. But like you said, they immediately recognized it. I know 3 laps aren't quick at Pocono. It's a big track, but they get in there, fix it, make the gains that they can, and they jump into the qualifying session.
So yeah, they were in Group A for the qualifying, and watching his lap was kind of interesting because he goes through turn 1 and they've got the tracker set up versus whoever 5th was, and it was in the red. And
yes, and I was like, oh no, immediately. No. So again, I'm already down. And then
but you got to remember what they say about Pocono with the 3 turns. You're not going to get all 3 correct.
Yeah.
But you got to get at least 2 of the 3. And sure enough, he gained time going through the tunnel. Turn. And then he got to 3 and gained even more time. And it was like, bang, come across the line at that point. I think at that point, was he the quickest or second?
If he wasn't, he might've been second, but it was like,
yeah.
And at that point in the qualifying session, I'm like, he really only needs one more guy to be slower than him. And he's basically going to be locked into the top 10.
And sure enough, that's what ends up happening. Ends up 5th overall in his group. So he makes it to the final 10. He goes out first in that final 10, but hangs on for sixth best overall. With heat cycling the tires, cooling the engine off, and going back out, that's a pretty good move. So 6 to start on Sunday, stages of 30, 95, 160. To the rear was the 1, the 24, the 43, the 41, the 31, and the 45, who crashed during his qualifying run and ended up not being able to race due to concussion protocols. So the Gibbs boy makes his debut.
Yeah, which the weekend itself was just so crazy with this more news about Kyle Busch and Joe Gibbs, the sponsors they were talking to kind of backed away. I mean, after Sunday, we kind of find out from an NBC report that Oracle, which was a huge technology and computer company, that was that rumored tech company that was going to sponsor him. They're saying that that's the one that backed away, that, kind of really has thrown this negotiation between Busch and Gibbs for a loop. And the fact that Ty Gibbs, who is the one waiting in the wings to either jump in the 18 if necessary or jump in the 19 after next season, gets a start here with no time in a next gen car at all.
And he hangs in the back most of the day and then makes his way up through there later on. So he does a pretty good job, really. At the beginning of the race, the scanner was malfunctioning. There was a little panic at my house.
A lot of people. I was on Twitter, and across the board, it sounded like no one was getting anything except for possibly the broadcast. So lots of people that rely on that, like you do, for their enjoyment or for their side job. We're a little bit worried.
So the outside lane or the top lane is the better lane on the restarts. And the leaders always take that lane. So starting 6th and up to 4th, basically in the first lap. By lap 3, the 11 passes him, so he's back to 5th. And now it starts to settle out a little bit. By lap 5, it's in 5th, but about 6 seconds back, and the 18 is leading at this point. Then at lap 6, we get a caution for the 2 car. So they're staying out this caution. There is 2 spotters for Ryan. We find out once the communication comes up, where they position the spotters in the regular grandstands, they cannot see all the way down into turn 1. So they will position somebody down in turn 1 and actually spot from there. And it's probably Mule. I didn't actually find out, but usually Mule's the secondary spotter. So you'll, listen and you'll hear 2 voices. This weekend coming up, it'll be like 3 or 4 different voices with Indy. But so he's P5 for the cone. Leader 18 takes the top. Ryan takes the top. They restart at lap 12. 18 has trouble on this restart and he almost collects the field. Ryan works his way around him up to 4th. Lap 16, Ryan says there's still no grip. The 5 cars leading at this point. And he says he's, lap 21, he's just barely hanging on, the spinning out type of thing is, a lot of people were having that issue, but turn 3 was causing some issues. And
that's what I was going to say. Yeah. It was worried for me because they had issues in practice. I mean, where you talked about Kurt Busch having an issue, that's where everyone was spinning. They would just lose it coming out of 3. Some people could save it. Some people went right into the wall, and then immediately, like you said, you mentioned a little bit before, the 2 car causes that first caution and, slams the wall and I think breaks a toe link, and there's a whole ordeal there for them. And hearing Ryan on the radio saying that 3, he's loose in 3, a little bit scary.
Yeah. And lap 25, he's, I hear those words, top of 3, the 18 and the 99. So Ryan ends up back in 6th at this point, trying to stay away from, having an issue with those guys. He's just, like he says, he's just trying not to wreck here is what he tells them. At lap 27, lots of cars start to pit. And we get a caution for the 10 car. Ryan is sixth place at this point. And, Jonathan and Ryan discuss how to get it tightened up. At lap 30, the 5 wins the stage. Ryan is sixth in the stage. And I have here now the field will flip after pitting. Interesting, people will bring up this data about how there were so many great passes during green flag runs at Pocono. And the reality is there weren't. Once they got spread out, they got spread out. But what happens is so many different strategies on when to pit, because you can pit if you're within 17 to 18 seconds of the leader, you can pit and not lose the lead lap. And you'll see during green flag runs where some of these strategies go ahead and happen so that they're trying to basically flip the field, be in a fuel window before somebody else is in a fuel window, hope for a caution at a certain point in time. So there weren't, they say there were a lot of passes for under green, but some of those passes happened while pit road was open.
What are your thoughts here? People are going to question strategy, right? Whether it's Ryan fans or fans of anybody else that stayed out here for the end of the stage. We're in this, the 12 team is in this position right now where, they're third in points, but the window, as Ryan said, the window's closing. There's only a couple of spots left here to get into the playoff. They're in this tough, and we talked about it before, they're in this really tough position. It's like, do they go for points and keep trying to pad the points? Or is there a point when they need to turn the switch and they need to focus on winning? And a lot of people really early on thought the winning strategy would be to short, pit before the stage breaks come out, just to try to keep up with the track position. Did you have any initial feelings on the strategy they were going with here?
It's interesting. If the race is green the whole race, that's how that strategy works. But what ends up happening is these cautions end up happening, and so many of them happen within the third stage that it equals out after a while. And then the tire wear is the big thing at that point. If they make it so the tires fall apart more, then you're going to see a lot of different strategies, because, if people come get tires and it's worth coming and getting the tires. But what was happening is, for the most part, the tires didn't wear that badly. So it was more about a fuel window for everybody. Who was in the fuel window? Did I get in the fuel window? Am I going to be a lap or two short? And we had, a couple of guys at the end of the race where the caution fell and they were able to make it. So yeah, ultimately you start off with that strategy thinking if the race goes green from this point forward, yes, we're on the right strategy. But what ends up happening is the strategies all come back together when you get 2 or 3 cautions in the last stage. So track position, still track position, but yeah, it didn't work out.
Yeah, sure. Just wondering.
Ultimately it's the idea is a good idea if it all stays green, but I could already tell sometimes these crew chiefs can already tell by the way the race is going, how many guys are loose already, that they know there's going to be more cautions to follow, that not 40 some guys cannot hang on all day long, coming out of 3 or wherever, so we get, everything flips around, and they only lost 1 spot on pit road during this pit sequence. But like I said, once again, the cars who had already pitted come out, they're in front. And he's 17th for the restart. The 21 is the leader. And he takes the top. Ryan takes the top. The restart lap 35. Turns 1 and 2 are just crazy on these restarts. Top of 4. I heard that a couple of times. Not fun. At lap 36, we have a caution for the 77. Ryan's in 18th, and the 20 is leading at this point. They're staying out. The choose cone leaders of 20 takes top. Ryan takes the top. The restart lap 39. Top of 3 in turns 1 and 2, but up to 14th. So he makes a move around a couple of the guys who had to check up down below. We get a caution for the 11 car spinning out in 2. They're staying out at this point. Chooses the leader as the 20 takes the top. Ryan takes the top. Restart lap 44. In turn 1, I hear middle of 3. I don't like middle of 3 at all. top of or bottom of, you can kind of do something with, but middle's no fun. Caution for the 7 car behind him, spitting in 1. This is the one I said something earlier about. They position. They seem to get, I don't know, use the word screwed. They seem to get screwed a lot when a caution comes out and the scoring loops and that type of thing happens. And then they always position them behind guys. And Josh and Ryan are talking about it. And then they're excited because they actually got the call right and put them in 13th in front of a couple guys that they were actually in front of. So they gained a spot or 2 the way they were supposed to. And for once they didn't get screwed.
Yeah, it gets a little hairy there when when the cars are between scoring loops and they're trying to figure some things out. But it's nice when it goes your way every once in a while.
Yeah. They're staying out. Ryan comments on the 2 car. He's gotten 3 laps back so far on all these cautions. He was the only car any laps down, and he kept getting laps back. So good for the 2 car. He was only 3 back at that point. The 20 takes the top on the choose. Ryan takes the bottom. Restart. 18 takes the lead on this restart. Ryan gets up to 12th at lap 48. At lap 49, he passes 17. He gets to 11th. At lap 50, he passes the 21. He gets to 10th. At lap 52, in 10th position, he's the top Ford. At lap 53, he says it's way too tight now. So they swung the other direction hard on the pit stop, and they tightened it up. Now it's too tight. Lap 54, the 23 pits. He's up to 9th. And here we go. We're doing some green flag pitting. By lap 61, he's up to 5th with some of these other cars pitting. And Josh asks Jonathan on channel 2, how much longer are we running till they pit? And I believe what he was told was more or less till the fuel runs out. They're going to go to the end of a fuel run here. Ryan's up to 4th as the 1 car pits. By lap 66, a couple more cars pit. He's up to 2nd. And then the 19 is leading at that point. And at lap 67, the 19 pits, and Ryan takes the lead at Pocono.
And we talked about strategy a little bit. So this one's even kind of different. Just staying out, going along, I guess, hoping for a caution to come out, something that could fall their way, and gets to lead some laps here.
Yeah, so it leads a couple laps, but once again, he's out there a long time on the tires.
Long time, yeah.
And the 43 and the 11 are starting to come, and he's told by Josh they have quicker cars, fresher tires. Lap 73, Ryan does ask, what are we waiting for? And Jonathan tells him about 5 more before we pit. So he was definitely trying to get to a fuel window so that they would only have to pit 1 more time after this, the rest of the race. And that's key. That was what the thought was. Once again, this is one of the strategies that works out super if it stays green the rest of the race too, because it'll force people to pit under green and so forth. So lap 74, the 11 pass, he's up to 3rd. At 79, Jonathan says, we're getting close. Watch for your fuel switch. Lap 81, they go ahead and pit because it started to sputter. He was in 3rd at that point. They're waiting on fuel. So this is, something I think they actually literally showed this pit stop on TV. The guys, come around. They got the tires on the right side. They come around the left side. They got the tires down on the left side, and the car still sits there. And I know it drives people crazy.
Yep.
But this is what you're supposed to do. It's tough because everyone wants to jump. Okay, the tires are done. Let's go. But getting the fuel in that thing now will save them from having to put as much fuel in it later. And that may be a key later on. So, Jonathan, he's in 25th, and Johnson says to take care of them till the end of the stage. We get a caution for the 42 right in front of Ryan.
Very scary.
Yeah, that one made everything kind of pucker up there a little bit. At lap 83, Ryan asked kind of like for a strategy update there. And Jonathan tells him most everyone's probably going to pit at this point or, before the stage break, but they're going to stay out. So at the stage break, the 23 was going to be leading. Ryan was up to 2nd. And it's like I said, at this point, everybody only needs one pit stop. So, you know, it was pretty good.
Yeah, things kind of equaled out strategy wise because of this, but the decision to stay long at least gave him the track position and a shot to go for the lead.
Yeah. So 23 takes the top here. Because he's leading at this point. Ryan's second, and restart lap 87. Ryan gets a little loose. He gets down to into third. Turn 3 passes the 23 though, gets to second at lap 88. The 1 passes him, he gets to third, and at lap 95, the 18 wins stage 2. Ryan is third and gets stage points again. Now, I said 6th earlier and third now, and these things end up being adjusted later on
for reasons,
as we find out. So they're staying out, and once again, 1 stop till the end is the strategy here. Choose cone, the 18 takes top, Ryan takes the top. Restart lap 100. The 11 gets inside of Ryan. Ryan ends up back to 6th here. And at lap 101, he passes the 43 car and gets to 5th. Now, to this point, this day is going beautiful. Chance to win, yes. The strategy, if it stays green, is definitely there. And the car is starting to come in, and he's definitely getting it adjusted to where he can do some stuff with it.
And he's racing hard too. You mentioned the 43 there. Yeah. 43 was not excited with how Ryan had been racing him. And it's because, they're racing toward the end of that previous stage. And then they raced hard again, at the start of the third stage. So you followed his scanner traffic. He didn't say some very nice things about the 12, but that's okay. It was what I was saying. It's a race. You're supposed to race the guys. And unfortunately though, we're going to talk about some things that happen here, but this was a very, I think, physical restart here with the 43, with the 11, and it got a little bit chaotic. And I don't know if it's going to lead to what happens or not, but it could have been a factor, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they rubbed it up against there or not. Usually these composite bodies, they don't cause the tires to. Yeah. But at lap 107, Ryan gets a flat, and it kind of happens. The flat tire happens on the other side of the track. So you got to get all the way around the track. He does a great job nursing it around, but now all of a sudden, he's lost, his lap 32, 32nd position, and
no caution,
nothing.
It's one of those things where it's like, it's tough with these new cars. It's like, man, if only it could have caused him to spin or something. But the danger there is if you spin, and he already had one tire go down, if he spins and another goes down, then he's stranded back there because it's really hard. So, but you're right. He does a really good job of nursing it around, but man, it costs him a ton of position on the track, and just kind of derails the day from here on out after they're having such a solid run, top 5, ends up being top 5, but pretty decent finishes in both stages here, and the strategy seems like it was going to work out pretty well. Maybe not for a win, but for a really, really solid day.
Yeah. So lap 110 is the first car lap down. By lap 120, like I said, 32nd. Lap 124, the 1 passes the 18 on a pit cycle here. So lap 125, the 17 spins, no caution, which was kind of interesting. That happened right in front of the grandstands there, and
so weird. I know they didn't want to. And there was the one thing to mention here is there was a threat of rain, so I kind of feel like that's a part of the reason why the tower held the caution flag, because guys spinning out of 3 was a caution every single time during this race, except for this time.
Yeah. Now, mind you, Ryan they're going to try to run long now. They're about 10 laps short on fuel, but they fueled up when they fix the tire. Excuse me. But at lap 126, he's in 31st, but he's back on the lead lap, 50 seconds back. And this is because some of the cars have now pitted, not because he, ran down and got his lap back. But lap 131, the 1 is the leader, and he passes Ryan, puts Ryan a lap down again in 30th. And then lap 137 is when Ryan takes this hard hit, coming out of 3, snaps, hits that front stretch wall. NBC does a great job. Not only, they show you what happened, but then they show you this video montage of cars that wall did not used to extend that far, and where Ryan hit did not used to be there.
Yeah.
And it's very, very possible if it was the older configuration of the track, he would have went right down pit road and hit who knows what down there, you know. So I mean, very thankful that he got out of the car. On the radio, you know, Josh, you know, spin in, lock it down. And then he says, "You okay, bud?" And Ryan right away says, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then the next direction Josh gives him more or less is about, you know, the safety workers, put the window net down, that type of thing. So very glad he got out of the car pretty quickly, looked out okay, getting out of the car, has since, you know, messaged people on Facebook and Twitter, letting them know that he's all right. But just a hard hit.
Hard hit. He said, you know, I mean, they're behind. They were a lap down. He was hanging in there. He was, I think, still hanging in as the first car lap down. So probably hoping there was a caution that was going to come out. Not for him, though. He said he was pushing as hard as he could and stepped over the line, and man, it ended up in a crash there. I know he was doing everything he could to try to rally. I mentioned that in the Discord. You know, it's like that's kind of what this team's about. They'll find some adversity, and I didn't think it was going to be possible to rally after that tire and all the position that they lost. And but they did find themselves in position to potentially capitalize if somebody else did make a mistake. And they're so close to, yeah, like I said, one more car spins before he does or something to getting that lap back and being right back in contention. And unfortunately, it doesn't always go that way. It's more unfortunate that it happens at such a critical time. And I know you're going to get into the point standings a little bit here too, and we can transition into that. But I mentioned it earlier, the window's closing, luckily, which we can mention, you know, I don't think you have much more to recap after this, but the 11 team goes on to, there's some, you know, some restarts. The 11 holds off the 18, and
the 11 and the one car have an issue.
That's true. Yeah.
So lap 142's restart, the 11 and help the one car into the wall, kind of, sort of, whatever. The four takes damage here, which is, I hate to say good for Ryan, but it is.
Yeah, can't have another winner.
Yeah,
another new winner.
They restart lap 147 with the 11 leading, and the 11 does end up winning. You know, Ryan finishes 35th at this point, but he gains 2 positions later on in the evening.
And this was kind of a shocker. You know, some of the media was already on the way out of the track. And then, you know, following Twitter, and all of a sudden, boom, the NASCAR comes out, has a little press conference, really held the lead here for a while, explaining what was going on. But the 11 and 18 get disqualified, and we've seen this a lot. We saw that this year in the Truck Series with Zane Smith. We've seen it in the past with Kyle and Denny themselves, both in the Xfinity Series. Multiple other Xfinity and truck guys have lost wins since I think 2019, when this rule was established that basically they're going to do a big teardown at the track, and you could lose a win because a Cup Series driver had not lost a win or been disqualified from a win since 1960. It's happened throughout the field, but never to the winner and never to first and second. So not only was the 11 disqualified, the 18 was disqualified. So you mentioned that affects stage finishes. So Ryan moves up in some of those stage finishes. He moves up in the overall finish. And it comes out that so we have, I don't know, there's so much to discuss on this topic, and I don't know how much we can want to get into it, but basically they put on this clear plastic, they call it like helicopter tape. They put it on the front fascia of the car. The fascia is also kind of known as the nose of the car, to get an aerodynamic advantage, anywhere where they can kind of seal up some cracks or smooth over an area where maybe, you know, air was gonna get trapped and could, you know, go move up over the front end of the car. I heard a lot of people saying, you know, why didn't they catch this? These cars were illegal in pre-racing inspection. Well, this tape was underneath the wrap, and NASCAR and pre-race inspection isn't going to start ripping people's wraps off to check and see what's going on underneath. So, and the tape was small enough to where the OSS system wasn't going to catch it on a scan. They were within their tolerances. One thing to point out, and I've heard this a lot from some other media folks, they wouldn't do this. People are saying, oh, it's just a piece of tape. What's the big deal? Why are they getting disqualified? This is dumb. They wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't an advantage to gain. And with this next gen car, there is so little that these teams can do that they're trying to find the smallest possible thing that could give them, you know, 100th of a second, you know, a little bit more horsepower or something like that. They're grasping at straws. And this is, I don't know that these two teams needed to be in desperation mode, but this is kind of a desperate time of the season. And we're going to see that even later on with some more penalties that were announced. There were penalties before the race, the 42 and 43, a similar kind of penalty. They had a material that was unapproved on the rocker panel or rocker box area, and they lost. Their crew chiefs were ejected. They lost points. So in this case, the 11 and 18 are disqualified, and that's pretty much it. They just move them to the back. The 18 actually, I think, finishes ahead of the 11 for, I don't remember what it, or they move to the back of the field. So I think they get a finishing spot. So it's not a complete DQ. The funny part is, you know, there's this incident with the 11 and the 1, and the 1 actually ends up finishing in front of the 11 in the order. So it moves things up. Now, to kind of bring it all into context, I mentioned another penalty, and this actually dropped a couple hours before we recorded this podcast on Tuesday. And the Fords have struggled with speed for a while now. One Ford that's been not like top 5 speed or anything, but Michael Mcdowell is having a career year. He had just clicked off, I think, his 8th top 10 of the season here at Pocono.
He finished
Ford.
8th. He was the highest Ford.
It actually moves up to 6 with those DQs on Sunday.
Yep.
And then he ends up being one of the cars taken back to the R&D center. And he and that team is hit with the same penalty that RFK Racing got. From what I understand, they used a filler substance in between the body panels. Again, I talked about with the front fascia stuff, these teams are trying to seal off areas for aerodynamic advantage here. So they use some filler in the body panels, 100-point penalty to driver and owner points, $100,000 fine. If they were to win a race, a 10 playoff point penalty as well. So this is where it gets really weird. NASCAR did everything by the book here, from pre-race inspection to post-race inspection to taking cars back and inspecting them in the R&D center. You are not allowed to modify parts. Where it gets, and again, they did everything by the book. So you could be angry at the rule book. I don't know that you can necessarily be angry at NASCAR. It's just such a weird situation that I consider what the 11 and 18 did was modifying a single-use part or a single, supplier part. Obviously, what the 34 did was modifying parts. What RFK did with the bumper at Atlanta was modifying a part. So the 34 and the 6 are hit, and it's not the death penalty, but they're hit with a huge points penalty, huge fine. Crew chiefs are suspended for 4 races. The only penalties that the 11 and 18 get, and again, they take a win away from the 11. That might not mean that much to him this season because he's already picked up a couple of wins. He has a decent point standing. So losing the points from the day isn't going to be that big of a deal. Career-wise, though, he actually was going to hit a milestone. I think he was going to pass. He was going to be the winningest driver at Pocono. I think maybe he's passing Tony Stewart or somebody else in the all-time wins list. So it did mean something. But, man, I just don't know how – they're not like off scot-free. They lost. They were disqualified. That's a big deal. But how do they not suffer the consequences that somebody that is caught at the R&D center gets? I don't know what your thoughts are on it. Again, I've reiterated, they've done everything by the book. This is just how the book is written. You can disagree with the book. I kind of disagree with the book because I feel like, man, they should be facing a bigger points fine or at least an equivalent points fine. And their crew chiefs shouldn't be. The crew chiefs are the one making – the crew chiefs and engineers are, but the crew chief is in charge making these decisions. Gabehart, had to know that there was tape under the wrap. Like,
yeah,
man.
That's the part that gets me is that they talk about now they're going to have to relook at their processes and how they do things, but they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Because they didn't appeal. That's the other thing to bring up. They're not appealing. So they've accepted that this is a penalty and they're going to move forward. But unlike the 6 and the 34 here, they're going to move forward with their crew chief and without $100,000 fine and without a 100-point penalty. They've just lost the wins. Kyle loses his second place finish. Already a tense time for Kyle right now at Joe Gibbs. So, man, I just don't know. I don't really know. I don't want to argue about anything or, really get too deep, but I just don't. It's just so weird. It's one of those things. Maybe NASCAR needs to look at it in the future. Maybe they don't, because this doesn't happen again. But it's just so odd to me that within the same week, two teams, 3 teams can modify a body part, pretty much breaking the same rules. And one of those teams loses their crew chief for 4 races and tons of money and tons of points, and the others are they only lose the race. But that's where we are. I mean, we've talked a little bit about teams pushing the limits here. The Fords have been a little bit slower. The Toyotas have come on, so I don't know if this is something they discovered and they've been faster a little bit more recently. But maybe, I don't know, maybe we're lucky and Penske isn't pushing the limits here, and maybe they're saving something for the playoffs. Yeah. So points are a big deal. We mentioned the fact that, Ryan moves up a couple positions. He still finishes in the back after that crash. But what this does help is with just gaining some more points in those stages, kind of helps his position overall. And he's lost a little bit here and there in the last 3 weeks to the first position. So he still sits third in points, but there's a lot of scenarios that are going to play out over the next few weeks. And talked about that window closing. There's only 2 spots, and if one more guy wins, pretty much Ryan's fighting to be highest in points for that last spot. 2 more people win. We better hope that second person is Ryan. Yeah, I got the board. I'm going to start working on this next week. There'll be some color graphics to the board, but we online, there was a question, and people are confused, and I understand why. Between the NASCAR and NBC and so forth, they put out 3 different sets of standings. And what they're doing is the first set of standings, we're going to call that the cutoff line standings. That's the one during the race itself, NASCAR, NBC, USA, wherever it's at. They like to put this thing on the left-hand side of the screen that shows you where they're running. And let's say, for example, right now, it's Ryan and it's Truex, right, that are outside of, they don't have a win. But let's say Amarola, is leading the race. So all of a sudden they'll take Amarola, they'll put Amarola into that cut line and above it. And then all of a sudden everybody bumps down one. Okay. So that's the cutoff standings that you see on the screen at that point. And they show it at the end of the race too. And basically what it does is okay, so we got Chase, 3 wins, right? And then Ross has 2 wins, and the 24 has 2 wins, and we go all the way down the line to, Cindric having a win. Christopher Bell just got a win. Okay. And then down to the bottom, we'll have Ryan and, the 12, and then the 19, okay, are the last 2 guys. They don't have a win, but they're above the cut line. And, Ryan's 106 points above that cut line. So with 5 races to go, point wise, nobody should be able to come past him in points. I mean, nope. That's just, not unless he crashes for 5 straight races, but don't see that happening. What we got to worry about, or what everybody's worrying about, is 2 guys winning races besides Ryan that don't have a win yet. And that, is really concerning. Yeah, it's a little bit scary. And that's what people are, it dominates all the talk shows, all week long. It dominates the, so, but that's, there are some big name guys out there. They're, like you mentioned, Truex is still out there without a win. Obviously Ryan's out there without a win. Eric Almirola has pretty much been good for 1 win the last few years. Mm-hmm. So there are guys out there that are Kevin Harvick, he's in contention every week in the top 10. He's without a win. So there's more guys out there that are capable of winning than there are spots left in the playoffs. Right. So now the secondary set of standings that you'll see, if you go let's say NASCAR.com, okay, is the actual point standings. Okay. Chase being the leader, Chastain 105 points back of the leader, Ryan 111 points back of the leader. Now, where you finish here, the first couple spots, there's actually bonus points toward the playoffs. So if Ryan were to finish 3rd right now,
he actually gets some bonus points that he'll get later on when it comes time for the reset for the playoffs. Okay, so you'll see this standing, and this is the normal standings. This is like what it would be if the playoff system didn't exist. Okay, this is the points they gain every week. This is NASCAR.com puts that up in a regular way. Now, when you go to NASCAR.com and then you flick it over and toggle it to playoffs, then what it does is it realigns everybody based on their bonus points and how the playoffs would start. Yeah. So if the playoffs started right now, Ryan would actually be 6th overall. Okay. He has 5 points from his 5 stage wins. Okay. And you see, it says 2013. So he gets 8 bonus points for finishing 3rd in the standings. Okay. So if he wins a race, he's got to think about that.
Back to 3rd, I think.
It knocks him. It gives him an extra 5 more points, puts him back up to 3rd overall. Okay, and that's if the playoffs started today. And so, winning makes it automatic, and winning will pop him up in there. Winning all those stages, like I said, is 5 extra points right now, where he'd be down here somewhere. So, kind of getting, those 3 different things set up and understanding that there's 3 different things. The regular standings, if when we were looking at this a couple of weeks ago, if Ryan would have passed Chase in the regular standings and been the leader gets automatically into the playoffs, even if he doesn't win a race.
Yep.
If 16 guys would have won races and Ryan would have won the regular season point championship without winning a race, he would have bumped one of the guys that won a race. Once again, Chase is leading right now. So if you come over to what the playoffs look like when they realign the playoffs, the 16th guy starts off with 2,000 points, and then they give you your points based on stage wins. So if you got a stage win, you get a point. If you had a victory, you get 5 points. So all those guys that got 1 victory are going to start off with at least 2005. But like I said, Ryan's got 5 stage points, plus he gets some bonus points for finishing in the top 2 or 3 in the standings. I think it's 10 points for second. I think it's 15 for first. So, like I said, Chase starting off, and this is what made Larson so dangerous last year starting the playoffs, is he had so many points that he could have made 2 mistakes,
Yep.
every other round, and yet he went on and won every other round. So yeah, we got 3 sets of standings. The first one is the one everybody's going to be worried about every week. This is the one NASCAR and NBC is going to put on the side of the screen, show you where they are in the running order. 14 guys have a victory. So you want to be number 15 if you can and not have to worry about it. But like I said, watch it carefully, because let's say Amarola takes the lead on a pit cycle or something this weekend, right? Now all of a sudden they show Amarola in the playoffs and they show Martin Truex out of the playoffs, because point wise, he doesn't have enough, he doesn't have a victory, and it's the 15th victory. But like I said, by the end of the race, that all sorts itself out. And then we go to the regular standings. Right now, we're not going to catch Chase at this point unless he crashes for 5 straight weeks, but it would be nice to catch Chastain. There's only 6 points here. Excuse me. You catch Chastain, it's more points to finish second for your bonus points later on here when they reset the playoffs. So like I said, this board next week will be even better, bigger, better, badder. And we'll go through it a little quicker. But like I said, there was a bunch of questions online on how the point systems work and why there's all these different standings that you're looking at. But that's what it is. One is how to get to the playoffs. One is what NASCAR does for regular scoring. And then the third one is what will happen once they realign for the playoffs.
If you want to see Steve's fancy board of points and math, you can catch that a few weeks ago. We kind of quietly launched just a YouTube version of the podcast. I mean, we weren't really expecting much there, but we did kind of want to go on record with some of the video that we have. So Steve's been trying to add in some visuals to this. We might even throw it on Facebook. We put our interview with Don Hawk on Facebook, and that did really, really well. So that's something we'll be considering. The one thing with the points, Steve, that concerns me, 2 things. One makes me sad, one concerns me. Just I think 3 races ago, Ryan was only 28 points out of the regular season lead, and Chase just has gone on this incredible run of top 2 finishes, and then having that win kind of, gifted to him this past week. So that gap has widened past 100 points. The other gap that concerns me is the one between he and Truex, because that's still really important to at least be in that 15th position, just in case there is one more winner. But that gap is also getting a little bit closer, and it's within about 20 or so points now as well. So that's one to watch. I know the 12 team can get back to consistency here, and the first place that they can do that is a track that they performed at really well last year, and that's where the Cup Series is headed, and that's to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But for the second year in a row, they're going to be on the road course for the Verizon 200 this weekend, Sunday, July 31st. You can catch the race at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on NBC, on the radio with the IMS radio network and Sirius XM NASCAR radio. This race last year, you attended that event. I know you guys are excited to attend the event again this year, out there with all of those other Blaney fans that are out there supporting the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan ends up finishing second in that race to AJ Allmendinger, and had a shot too to win it last year. That made things pretty exciting. Yeah,
it was a late caution, late restart, started second, but just couldn't get to AJ. A couple notes about this week. The Ryan Blaney Family Foundation posted on Tuesday that there's only a couple tickets left. So get there, get your tickets. Somebody asked about autograph opportunities and things like that. Now, the ticket, $75, gets you the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation special shirt. It's a purple shirt. It gets you a cooling towel. It also gets you to a questions and answer session. Now, I'm not guaranteeing any kind of autographs, okay, but you at least get a Q&A session, chance to take some, up close pictures of Ryan, maybe get to ask him a question. So it's a really kind of cool little perk. But like I said, there's only a couple of tickets left, so get your hands on those in the next day or two. And then we will release information as we get it on what time and where to meet for that. I was in contact with Patty Auber herself, and she said that she will email us info as soon as Indianapolis gets back to them on where they're going to be set up. Usually it's somewhere, inside of the track, behind the pagoda somewhere. But she'll let us know what time, and we'll post that social media for that. So just a couple little things there to look out for in the next couple of days.
So I'm kind of a broken record on this every time we talk about road courses, and we do it more and more. Especially last year, I think they had 7 on the schedule with the Daytona added, and this year they had 6 on the schedule. Ryan, one of the most underrated road course racers in the series, at 12.2 average finish on the road courses over his career. Like I said, he was second at Indy last year in this race. So far this year, they've run 3. He was 6th at Coda, where he sat on the pole. Finished 6th at Sonoma in a really strong run, 11th at Road America. So that he kind of finished back more toward where his average is there. But he knows how to wheel this car, even this new car too, around road courses. So it's always one of those races, he's looking for this victory. He's got up against some stiff competition, because those 2 cars at Trackhouse Racing are really, really good. And Chase Elliott is on one heck of a roll, and I would not be surprised to see him running up front again in this race.
Yeah, this weekend, I don't think we should look for any new winners. I know when it comes time to, the look at this whole playoff standings and so forth, I don't see anybody coming from below the cut line. At least not anybody who's within the top 30 in points. That's serious risk. Tyler Reddick, showed at the last road course that, Road America, what he can do. The road courses are so different too. You just say road course and you think, oh man, they're all, but they're different too. Sonoma or Watkins Glen, which they've been going to for years and years and years, they've learned how to run them, and they run them in a certain way. Whereas some of these newer ones, they're a little bit different, and the guys are still learning where breaking points are and where they can actually make a pass. So the curbing thing last year was a big deal, and they tore that up. And I'm curious to see what Indianapolis Motor Speedway has done. I'm sure they had to have done something with that turtle or whatever to keep them from launching like they did last year. I can't wait to get there and see it this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this race. There's been some chatter again, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Pocono went fairly well with the next gen car. A little bit more exciting race than we've seen there recently. Pocono is one of those tracks that people are looking at to see, if we ever do go back to the oval at Indianapolis, that's one place that might give us a little bit of an idea of what the race would be like. I do think there's the opportunity. The race last year was exciting. There were some shenanigans at the end between Briscoe and Hamlin that made it a little bit more exciting. But I do think if they go back to this road course here and it's, a lights out, action packed event, it's going to be really tough for the crowd that kind of wants them to go back to the historic oval, which there's a lot of drive. I know Kevin Harvick's pretty vocal about it. Chase Briscoe, who, he's actually won an Xfinity race there and was in contention to win last year, kind of even said, man, I grew up in Indiana. I wish they kind of would go back to the oval again. You have any thoughts on whether they should stick with the road course or maybe even consider going back to the oval in the future?
I understand the prestige of driving on the oval there, but because of the car and even the new version of the car, I don't think it's going to make that big a difference. That place is just not built for a stock car to make the stock car moves around the track. Open wheel, yeah. The Indy car, definitely. Those things are low, downforce type things, and they're low to the ground, and they're 220 miles an hour into the corner, and they grip like crazy. But a stock car, it's just the place, the way it's built, the rectangle, the tight turns that they might as well race the road course. It's going to be a lot more fun, a lot more interesting, and better racing. They proved it over the last couple of years. I don't think the generation of car makes a difference.
So for now, they will continue on here at the Indianapolis Road Course at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You can catch the race this Sunday, July 31st, the Verizon 200, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC, on the radio with the IMS Radio Network and Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. So we should transition over to the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League here. And this was a very interesting weekend. Because for a lot of people, not just Steve. So Steve, before the DQs, was finished up in the top 10 for the week. I didn't do so hot. I did take a hit though, because I had Denny Hamlin in my lineup. So I took a hit there. There are several other people through Discord and through Twitter contacting me, like, oh man, I was in the top 10 or I was in the lead all the way until the DQs happened. So, I'm happy a little bit because it did bump Steve out of the top 10. So why don't we go through our lineups, who we did have in our lineups, and maybe how we were affected here by some of these disqualifications that happened. So for me, going into the race at Pocono, I started Chase Elliott, who ended up winning. Bubba Wallace, who had a solid run. Chris Buescher, who I thought was going to have a solid run, but ran into some trouble during the race. Denny Hamlin was in my lineup. So, Elliott was going to finish third. I was going to have Hamlin there finishing in first. Took your advice, which you even talked about this on the podcast last week about, I told Adam, he's got all these starts with Ryan left. Let's start Ryan. So Adam goes ahead and starts Ryan, and he finishes in the back. So he was running well. It was setting up to be a decent top 5 finish, finished pretty high in each of those stages. So it was going to be good all the way up until the flat tire and the crash. And in the garage, I left Kyle Larson and I didn't make any changes. So that's how that went. My featured matchups, I picked Christopher Bell over Kevin Harvick. That turned out right. I picked Almirola over Eric Jones. That did not work out well. Jones did have a strong run. Almirola, I think, ended up finishing 13th. In the third set there, I picked Brad Keselowski over Austin Dillon. That didn't work out. And in the final one here, I picked Kyle Busch over Hamlin, and they ended up being credited with 35th and 36th position overall. So that didn't work out for me. So it was just not a good week. Even I think if I had Hamlin still in there, it still wasn't going to work out. I was still about 100 points off the lead. Who did you have in your, what was an amazing starting lineup at first? Who'd you have?
Well, it's interesting. You talk about where they finish, but you got to realize too that stage points were different for different drivers too, because of the different strategies. So But in the overall, I had what would have been the first, second, third, and fourth place finishers, or first, second, third, and sixth place finishers. I don't know. I had Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and then Bell and Truex. So let's see. Bell would have been 6th. Truex would have been 9th. And I would have had 1, 2, 3, 6, 9. Instead, I've got 1, 4, and 7.
Not too bad.
And then 35 and 36. Ouch.
How'd you do in the matchups?
I had Bell over Harvick. I did have Amarola, unfortunately. I had Brad Keselowski, unfortunately. But I had Denny Hamlin with that big 35th place finish, beating Kyle Busch by 1 position. So,
so one thing I do want to take from listening to you guys last week, and I don't know why I haven't done this in a year and a half. Well, I'm going to go through the standings and points earned for this week at Pocono, and I'm going to go ahead and do what Kate did, and I'm actually going to start at the bottom instead of the top. And I'm like, why haven't I been doing this? That makes so much more sense to not reveal who ended up in first until the end. So kudos to Kate for that idea. Yeah. So that's
why we pay her the big bucks.
So we did have some duplicates in here. So I'm going to go through the top 10 here, but really I'm going to start with 9th because we have a tie here for the 9th position with Freigal 12 and David Lazaro tied 168 points. In 8th, B. Rye 12, 169. In 7th, Blaney or Bust, 170. In 6th, No Hesitation, 172. In 5th, Matt O with 173. In 4th, Cash 730, 180. In 3rd, Moose 1616 with 182 points. In 2nd, Blaney 10, 191 points. And in the first position in points earned in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League this past week for Pocono Raceway, we have Flying Ryan 12, 211 points earned. So Steve, you before the reset from the DQs, you were in the 10th position. You dropped 10 spots all the way down to a tie in 20th with Eric D15 with 146 points. And I'm right around where I used to be all the time last year in the 43rd position with 122 points. So I ended up way off here from the lead, unfortunately, just due to some of the decisions that I made. So now let's take a look at the overall league standings for the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And holding down the 10th position with 3,856 points is Supermod. In 9th, Eric D15. In 8th, Blaney Kicks Beep. In 7th, Factory of Sadness 6. In 6th, the Dalai Lama 4. In 5th, Two Bushes No Johnsons with 3,918 points. In 4th, Moose Hunter 1960. In 3rd, last year's defending champion Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing. In 2nd, Math Mom 4. And in the first position right now, overall, Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, Fry Gal 12, 4,091 points. So Fry Gal has a pretty decent lead over second right now, and it's going to get interesting as we head into the playoffs. Steve's team, Mez 12, is in the 21st position, 3,723 points, and I am in the 31st position, 3,603 points. So I'm 120 points away from Steve right now. Which there was a point when I had leapfrogged him in the standings, but I had some issues where I forgot to set a lineup, I think, when I went to Atlanta, and have just made some horrible picks since then. So we just talked about the Indianapolis road course. The defending winner there is AJ Allmendinger. I think they actually, I can't pronounce the guy's name. They do have a Russian former Formula One driver who actually had some pretty solid starts for Red Bull and Toro Rosso and a couple of other teams in the last 5 or 6 years. That's going to run one of the Team Hessenberg cars. I don't know what kind of impact he's going to have on the race, but those are kind of like the two wild cards that are in this race. I know you kind of favor Allmendinger a lot when it comes to road course races, but anybody that's a guarantee for your lineup this week?
I said Tyler Reddick. I do think Tyler Reddick shows up pretty big here. Chase Briscoe, as long as we don't do any off-roading, should be in good shape. But once again, learning what we learned from last year, turn one is such a key element to the whole race. the way they barrel down into one and how they make that turn and how many guys get bumped out of the way, changing their track position quickly. How many restarts there are during the day is going to be key. If there's only the 3 restarts, the initial start and the 2 stage starts, it won't be too bad. And, everybody's strategy will work out. But if we get to the end of the race and have 3 or 4 restarts like we did last year, we could see some crazy things. Could be really, really kind of nuts, So just hopefully that Ryan does the same thing this year he did last year. Stay out of everybody else's trouble. Make hay when you can make hay, and be there at the end with the fenders on it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be taking a look at Allmendinger possibly for my lineup, and also the 2 team Trackhouse cars because they've been fast at every road course this year. So, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. I want to thank everyone once again for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, please listen to our very first episode that dives deep into our Blaney fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and Twitter at Team Blaney and on Instagram at team.blaney. Finally, I want to recognize the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. This organization championed by Ryan and his family supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine. Find out more about the foundation online at ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or on any of their active social media channels. And I know, Steve, you just kind of gave them some more information on the ticket packages that they will still have. They might still have available if you can get on there. But the goal, as you've said all along, is to try to turn the stands purple right there.
Turn those grandstands purple. We're going to all be sitting together. Let's get those grandstands purple. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we get Rutledge up there during the broadcast and get a shirt on him too. And this weekend, pretty exciting all around. Indianapolis brings back the truck series to IRP. So the playoffs actually start for the truck series starting this Friday night. So I know we follow Josh, and Josh does spot for Zane Smith. So if you get a chance Friday night, tune in for that. And let's see what happens this week in Indianapolis. It should be fun.
So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Good night, Dublin.